It's always dangerous when Flossie introduces a speaker because Flossie makes you look like somebody who's like 10 times your size and stature, so don't believe a word of what she said. Anyway, just kidding. Thank you very much for those kind words, and good evening. Let's try this again. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. You know, she said I have 4 decades of experience, which means I'm the oldest guy in this room, right? Which means all of you have more energy than me, right?
Yes.
There you go. So that's the way we're going to spend this evening together. Okay, so just a quick introduction. I get cut off here. I worked for some companies that I care to remember about and some that I don't in the first 20 odd years of my career. Then I got into writing books, which nobody reads these days. And I also write smaller articles because certainly books nobody reads, smaller articles once in a while. Some of you will read. Right now, I split my time between the US and Singapore, as Flossie was saying. So that's a little bit about me. Let's start with a little bit of a warm-up exercise, shall we? We'll do a little quiz. So here comes the first question. How many Earths do we need to cater to current levels of resource consumption? We are 8 billion people in the planet, and to help us with our food, our clothing, and our air, basic natural resources, how many Earths do we need for 8 billion people today? Okay, 16% of you got that right. We need 1.7 Earths already. Okay, and that's at 8 billion. We are going to 9 billion pretty soon. What happens then? And by 2030 already, we will need 2 Earths. 2030 is not that far away. And then at 9 billion, it's going to be catastrophic. Okay, up until recently, about 5 species would go extinct every year. How many times more than the normal rate of extinction is it now? So less than 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, it used to be 5 per year would disappear. How much more than the normal rate is it now? Are you ready for this one? 10,000 times the normal rate of extinction today. What percentage of humanity lives on less than $5.50 a day? We're talking about income inequality now. Again, 8 billion people. How many of those live for less than $5.50 a day? It's not quite 81 yet, but it's half of humanity. You got that right? Okay, good. We'll see who's the winner in the end. Here's my favorite one. How many rich men have more wealth than all the women of Africa put together? Now, Africa population is about 1.3 billion. Roughly half of those are women. So that makes it more than 600 million women. A handful of men have more wealth than all of them put together.
That is not single digit, I guess.
Many of you got this one right. Just 22 men have more wealth than all the women of Africa put together. Just think about that for a minute. Talk about inequality. Okay. Who's we? Who's we? We? Is that you?
I'm B, not Philip though.
Sorry?
I'm B, but not Philip.
Oh, Philip is number 1. Sorry, I got that one. Sorry, yeah. Okay. Well, congratulations to all the 5 on the top, but we are not done yet. You have another few chances to make up for where you are. Okay. How often does a cybersecurity attack take place somewhere in the world? Let's see this one. Yes, most of you got this one right. Every 39 seconds. So those of you who are on the competition on the leaderboard, you have a few more chances. Which is the most lucrative crime in the world today? Most of you got that one right too. Cybercrime just took over the drug trade as the most lucrative crime in the world recently. Amazing, isn't it?
Is that because of COVID?
It shot up during COVID and after COVID, but because we don't know. Yeah.
Drug dealers couldn't go out.
But what about now? What about now? Now things are back to
Millions of
normal.
dollars.
But apparently this is holding its reign. And later we'll talk about other issues. Okay, how many dollars are currently parked in ESG assets? You know, these funds that are designated ESG, money that is supposed to help with climate and social. Are you ready for this one? Shocking. 43 trillion. That's a third of all assets under management in the world. Yes, but here's the question I didn't ask. How much of this 43 trillion is actually going towards climate or social action? What do you think? Hardly any.
Because it also, the question is how effective it will be, how impactful it will be, because like they can just package it as for ESG related, but the realization is not.
You're absolutely right. It's about, is it really ESG? Is it really ESG or is it just a check the box ESG? Because if you look at impact capital, impact investment, that produces very good results because that is actually intended for social or environmental outcomes. But the fund management industry, most of these funds that call themselves ESG are not really ESG. And that's why it's not reaching where it's supposed to reach. Okay? Okay, I think this is my last question. Of the world's 100 biggest economies, how many of them are countries and how many of them are companies? So country would be GDP, company would be market cap. Okay, many of you did get this one right. Only 31 out of the top 100 economies are countries. What does that say about the responsibility of business in addressing environmental and social concerns? Can we leave it to governments alone? No. Absolutely not. And this is the single most reason why businesses need to step up. Because today many companies are bigger than many countries put together. And if they don't own up to their responsibility, who will? And what is going to happen to our race is the question. Okay? So, here we are. You did make it to the top in the end. Congratulations to you. But actually, you're tied with who's empty. There you are. Fantastic. Well done. Well done. Okay. So, yes. Well done to both of you. And well done to all of you. Now, the fact that we live in times of existential challenges, everybody knows. And everybody's talking about sustainability. The good news is that everyone is talking about sustainability these days. The bad news is that everyone is talking about sustainability these days. And that's the issue, right? Here are some more things we need to know besides these three. And that is, every one of us here is naked. Individuals, organizations, everybody today is naked, thanks to connectivity. Everything you do, everything you don't do is in full public view. What that means for these challenges is whether you are doing something about them or you're not doing anything about them, either way, your action or inaction is in full public view. Because we live in the naked era, okay? The most popular solution to these challenges these days is this thing called ESG, which you've heard a million times already, right? That there are many, many frameworks, there are many, many things that are being thrown at this, but the front runner solution seems to be ESG, right? What is ESG made up of? It's made up of cheap capital, so-called the $43 trillion that doesn't exist, right? It's made up of regulations. More than 100 countries have passed regulation recently on environment and social, right? And it's made up of incentives, tax incentives, green incentives, and now the latest trend is linking CEO compensation to ESG markers. So the question is this working? Well, if it was, we should have been moving towards 1.5 degrees, but we are moving towards 2.7 degrees. All right, we've had 11 consecutive hottest months in history. So it isn't working. The $43 trillion is not reaching where it's supposed to reach. So what do we do is the question, right? So rhetorical question, but go ahead, take one more shot. Should be the same, right, there you go. Okay, for the 20-something% of you who believe that it is working, let's take another look. And hopefully you will ask yourself the same question towards the end again. Okay? And I see the number is reducing a little bit. Here's the thing. The front runner solution is ESG. All right? We've researched this for the last 10 years. And we have found the only time good things happen for environment and social through business is when business adopts the idea of doing well by doing good. Today we talk about sustainability as an afterthought if we talk about it at all, right? What can we do to meet regulatory standards, this, that, and the other? The doing well by doing good businesses actually think about what good can we do while making money for ourselves. They flip the equation. And I'll prove to you that that's the solution that is going to save the world. Otherwise, we are all in big trouble. All right? But that raises a couple of questions. And the most important question it raises is, yes, doing well by doing good sounds like a nice phrase, but is it possible to drive superior shareholder returns by pursuing a worthy purpose? Or is that just a poetic idea? Is it actually possible to drive? Business exists to make money, right? And you have to give your investor and your shareholder a nice, good return. Business is not in the business of charity. Is it possible to do well by doing good? Is it possible to drive superior shareholder returns by addressing the very challenges that are threatening humanity today? That's the question. Let's take a look. Here's one question for you. This CEO, over their 10-year tenure as CEO, provided 290% return to shareholders. By the way, the 10 years before their tenure as CEO, the returns and the growth of this company was flat to negative. Okay, so 290 in that context, over 10 years, a pretty good number. They did it by creating a sustainability-based business plan, and they did not do it because of any regulatory pressure or any investor pressure of anything of that sort. They did it because they wanted to. Okay, they exited very, very profitable lines of business because they were harmful to society or to environment, and replaced them with sustainable products. In the first 2 years, revenue tanked, profit tanked, so much so that 75% of the top leadership team quit because this guy is driving the company down to the ground. But the board stood by them, and in the end, that was the result. Anybody know who this is?
Unilever.
Sorry?
Unilever.
Unilever, but who in particular? Which CEO?
Paul.
It was Pullman. This was Pullman's tenure as CEO. Okay, let's take another look. 21,000% stock price appreciation since IPO in the 90s. Okay, this company has from day one focused on the S of ESG, on society and on employees. They became the first company in North America to provide full healthcare benefits even to part-time workers, I think in the world actually. Till today, they spend more money on employee benefits than they spend on raw material. And they are one of the largest employers of people with special abilities. Any idea who this is? Company continues to grow and grow and grow, defying all odds. It's not a tech company. Anyone? Any guesses? Sorry? No, it's not Patagonia. It's not Patagonia. This is Starbucks. Howard Schultz. This guy was the son of very poor immigrants. Okay? And when he was 7 years old, his father, who was then a temporary truck driver, broke his leg and came home, had no medical insurance, and the total income of the family of 5, of which he was the eldest kid, was $19,000 a year. And they had no money for treatment, so they had to sacrifice and eat less food to save money for medication. And he swore to himself when he was a teenager when I grow up, I will make sure nobody is left behind the way we were left behind just because we were poor. Hence, the largest company the first company to provide part-time, full medical health care to even part-time workers, and spending more money on benefits than anybody else. Funnily enough, somewhere down the line, as Starbucks was growing and growing and growing, he stepped down as CEO and just became board chair. And the growth slowed down. Analysts, Wall Street analysts as they are, analyzed and said, hey, your business model is solid, everything is okay, but your benefits costs are out of whack with the industry. Uncontrollably growing like that is not going to work. Cut your benefits cost and you will be fine. His answer, upon my dead body. Came back as CEO, looked for innovation elsewhere, ignited growth again, and the rest, as they say, is history. This conglomerate has been in business for more than 155 years and continues to grow. By the way, the average lifespan of a company is only 18 years these days. Their mission is to bring enhancements to the quality of life in the communities. They are in from steel to software to hospitality to power, you name it, they are in every possible business. And 66% of share capital is owned by philanthropic trusts. Their market cap is now over 300, as I checked yesterday, over $370 billion, and still growing. Which conglomerate is this?
Tata?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Now everybody gets this one right, that this is Tata. But what I want to show you is what the founders said in the 1800s. We talk about sustainability, ESG today. Look what Jamshedji Tata said in the 1800s. In a free enterprise, the community is just not just another stakeholder in business, but is in fact the very purpose of its existence. Long before the first steel plant came up in what is today called the city of Jamshedpur in India, at that time, it used to be a very rural area, a small little village. It was called Sakchi at that time. There was no infrastructure there. Long before the steel plant was completed, they built hospitals, they built schools, they built community parks, they built avenues with trees on either side, they put big playing fields, mosques, temples, churches. Why would an entrepreneur do all of that, even before the plant construction was completed? Not because of the goodness of his heart alone, but because he realized that it's going to be good for the business and for society. If I don't build that infrastructure, how will engineers and others come and live here? Why would anybody move their family to this godforsaken place? Doing well by doing good. And 155 years later, the Tata Group has this philosophy that we will first see what is it that society needs, and then we will find a profitable solution. And if we can find a profitable business model for us to make money by addressing a societal pain point, we will get in, otherwise we won't. And that's true of Patagonia, as you mentioned earlier, and all the examples that I've been talking about so far. So what I'm trying to do is get you to understand, or answer the question for yourself. Is doing well by doing good possible, or is it just a poetic idea? You decide from these examples. Okay, here's another very interesting story. What you see here, this scorched earth, this is the Golden Triangle, northern Thailand, the border of Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos. And this is what it used to look like. Why was it like this? Because independent, heavily armed militia ran the villages or controlled all these villages in this area in those days. There were only two professions, prostitution and opium-based drug manufacture. Now, if you wanted to make a living, you had to do one of those two. If you said, I don't want to do either, you would be beaten up mercilessly by this militia. There were no schools nearby, there were no hospitals nearby, and if you fell sick, the only medicine was opium, so there was heavy-duty addiction as well. Yeah. One fine day, the Thai princess mother landed there in her helicopter on one of these hills and said to her team, her foundation, I reject this present. I want to see a better, different future in this place. Go do it. Her foundation didn't have much money. She had a title of princess, but she wasn't in power, wasn't actually a ruler as such. So she says, but you people tell me that the people of Thailand love me dearly. I am very popular and they love me a lot. Is that really true, or you just say that to please me? No, 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 it's really true. He said, then go ask every citizen to give. She was 89 years old. 89 at that time, I think, or 79, I can't remember. Quite old. It says, 79, her 80th birthday was coming up. It says, ask every national to give me 1 baht or 5 baht as a birthday gift. Raise money like that and test if they really love me. That's how they raised the initial capital. And then what happened is they transformed this hellhole of prostitution and drug production into the same very workers, the same very villagers who were beaten up every week, became owners of a highly profitable community-owned business that is thriving until today. They have 5 verticals so that's what the picture looks like now. It's totally reforested, and they are a great example of circular economy if you go visit now. We think about recycling in 3 points, right? You have 3 bins, 27 in their case. Everything goes back. Even when they produce single origin coffee, the husks of the coffee is used as fuel. The ash of that fuel, once it's burnt, is used as fertilizer. Everything goes back. And they they sell to IKEA, they sell to Muji, they use Italian designers to design their products. Hugely profitable transformation. My team and I went there to research this, and seeing is believing. If you ever get a chance, you should go there. Doing well by doing good. Is it possible? I hope you are convinced by now. But then, for all these good stories, we also have these kinds of stories, right? You all know about the Dieselgate scandal? Yes? Here's something you didn't know. I bet you didn't know. This was not the first time they did it. Did anybody know that? Did you know this was not even the second time they did it?
They did it multiple times.
This is the 3rd time they did it.
There are minor things they have done.
Even worse. After.
Worse before.
Yeah. But the major deceiving was the 3rd time. Unbelievable. Most people don't know this. Unbelievable, isn't it? Next time you think of buying a product. And then there was Theranos. You know this story? You know, we wanted to believe this story because finally the next Steve Jobs was going to be a woman. She even started dressing like him. She even started speaking like him in that husky voice that she put on. It was an amazing story. We wanted to believe it, right? Sadly, when the product didn't work, she chose fraud over the truth. So this one we call greenwashing, that one we call purpose washing. So for all the good stories I told you, there are also these kinds of stories. Now, when you put all these good and bad stories together, what we can do is we can put on a spectrum environmental and social action of companies. So on the extreme left-hand side, you have the greenwashers and the purpose washers like Volkswagen, Theranos, Enron, so many of those, right? Then you have the blissfully ignorant or in denial. What climate change? Is there such a thing? What inequality? By the way, even if there is such a thing, it's not my problem. I pay my taxes. I don't break the law. I'm okay. Yeah? Then there's the window dressers. Oh, everybody's talking about sustainability these days. How can we be left behind? Let's dress up the window. Let's make the mannequins look beautiful so that it looks like we're doing a lot, but actually we're not. It's all form and very little substance. Those are the window dressers. Then you have the box checkers, because every country is now passing new legislation on this. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to be fined. So they will do as much as the law says and no more. And a lot of people still believe that regulation is the only thing that's going to save the world. Because unless you use the strong arm of the law, people are not going to behave. And I will show you why that is not a great argument in just a few minutes. And then you have the true environmental or social champions. The difference between the left-hand side and the right-hand side is this. These guys are profiting from today's challenges. Does anybody know when was the first electric car, EV, invented?
1800s? No.
A long, long time ago.
1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A long, long time ago. Why did it take this long for it to go commercial?
Because IC engines came along and they were more beneficial, easier to control and all.
And we could say this about many, many, many industries which are protecting. So they are profiting from today's challenges. Whereas these guys are creating profitable solutions to today's challenges. That's the difference. So as you think about your career and as you think about your business life, there are choices to be made here. And that's what this is all about, right? The question is, how can we encourage more organizations to move to the right? To answer this question, I'd like to ask you one more question. What is common between Enron, Terranos, and FTX? You all know about FTX? Yeah? FTX was the, what was his name? SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, the mullet head guy, the crypto king, right? He was pretending to be the do-gooder who was going to give up his money and make the world a better place, but he was actually stealing our money, and now he's in jail. So what's common between how did these things happen? How could they continue with this fraud for so long? Greed, but how did it go unchecked? In the corporate sense, what was not happening or what was happening? Sorry? Governance. Poor governance, right? Poor compliance, poor governance. That's what most people say. Poor compliance. Poor. Now, if that's the answer, then what is usually the solution suggested? More governance, more regulation, stronger. That's how we react, right? Always. Oh, how did we allow this to happen? Our governance was weak. Our compliance was weak. So what's the solution? More governance, more compliance. Now, that's a huge problem. Why? Because more regulation, more governance, more compliance does not solve the problem.
People find a way.
People find a way, exactly, and I'm about to tell you a story about that exactly, because a few years ago, I met this interesting chap. His name is Andy Fastow. Anybody heard that name, Andy Fastow? Former CFO of Enron. He's the guy who did all the financial jugglery. I met him when he just came out of jail. He served his sentence, he just came out. He had a lot of time to think in jail as to why somebody like him who came from a good church-going family actually went to jail, became a white-collar criminal. And he wanted to write a book about what not to do because he had plenty of time to think about in jail. Somebody suggested to him, I talked to this guy called Rajeev, he writes books on leadership. You guys might write a good book together. And I thought, wow, I grew up in India, so I watch a lot of Bollywood. And in Bollywood, there is a formula how to make your movie successful. We call it masala, which is spice. So I said, he comes from crime and jail, that's all the spice. And I know how to write. This will be a nice super hit, right? So I got very excited. I thought, let's write this book together. And unfortunately, my publishers in New York said it's a very bad idea. Do not associate yourself with this criminal because your career as an author will be over because the kind of harm that Enron created. Anyway, so the book was never written, but I had a very interesting 2-hour conversation with this guy. This is what Andy told me. Many people believe that Enron was a failure of compliance. I disagree. What it was a culture failure. And he said to me, we proved to the world that we can create the biggest corporate fraud in history without breaking a single law. For the longest time, they actually did not break any law technically. They broke the principles or the values behind the law. The reason why they all went to jail in the end is because the intent to defraud got proven. But technically, the letter of the law was very seldom broken. So if Andy is right, we have a huge problem because the response to everything these days is more compliance, more diligence, and more governance. Huge problem, right? That's the issue. By the way, very interesting. He was on a speaker circuit until a few years ago. I don't know whether he speaks anymore or not. I have a suspicion that he's got a gag order as part of his early release from prison. But he would start his speeches with holding 2 things in his hand. And he would say, I got both of these in the same year for the same deals. This is my CFO of the Year award, he would say. I got this for all the innovative deals. I got this in January of 2001, if I'm not mistaken. This is my prison card, which I got in May of the same year for the same deals. Interesting, isn't it? He told me also another interesting story. He says, about a few months into my sentence in jail, my 17-and-a-half-year-old son came to see me in jail. And he said, Daddy, I've read all your court papers, the case papers. Why are you in jail? You did nothing wrong. You did not break the law. Why are you in jail? He says, I had to explain to my son what not to do. So he says, son, imagine you have an invitation to a party at your seniors this Saturday. And you just started driving. You tell mom, hey mom, ask mom, can I take the car? Mom says, yes, you can drive the car to the party, son, on one condition. Don't drink alcohol. And you promise to Mom, I swear to God, I won't drink alcohol. I really want to drive to the party. And you drive. But you reach the party and your seniors and your peers are all saying, hey, come on. Don't be a wuss. Be a man. Come on. Have a beer, have 2 beers, have 3 beers. Mom will never find out. It's okay. And you say, no, I promised my mom I'm not going to do that, blah, 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 blah. It says that carries on for some time, and then somebody comes up to you and says, okay, have this candy. And the candy has equivalent of 3 beers worth of alcohol in it. And he says, son, I went to jail not because I drank alcohol, but because I ate the candy. And that's what we did at MU. Interesting, isn't it? So the point here is, if G, governance, G of ESG, right? Is G going to save us from E and S challenges? Not in its current form. Not in its current form. We, a few years ago, asked a bunch of board directors around the region, how do you spend your time in board meetings? And this is what we got. Incidentally, my colleagues here who are sitting at the back this morning did another reveal of our latest study of what the board's role in sustainability is, and the data is pretty similar. 60% of board time goes in financial performance, regulatory compliance, and risk management. We asked the same board directors, what are you not spending enough time on? And this is what they said. Sustainability, culture, leadership, talent. If Andy Fastow is right and it was a culture failure, then we have a big problem called the G problem. This is the way governance is practiced these days. And if you were in the room this morning when we were revealing our new study, you would hear director after director talking about the fact we don't have time for anything else. That's all we do, even today. How are we going to save ourselves from E and S challenges, which are existential challenges, if this is the way we practice G? We need to find a different solution, isn't it? Because governance is made up of these 3 things. Let's look at some of these things. Let's look at regulation. Okay? I'm not saying that we don't need regulation. You need laws. You need regulation for a society to function. But here are some problems. Regulation sets the minimum standard of good behavior. Is not lying the same thing as telling the truth? No, it's not. Just because you are a law-abiding citizen, does that make you a good person automatically? No. The opposite is not. It's not a synonym antonym thing, right? It takes more. So what regulation does is sets the minimum standard. If you do worse than this, we will put you to jail. So you come up to there, I'm well below them. I'm okay. Regulation may preserve present value but does not create future value, right? What do you need to solve for environmental and social challenges today, for climate change and inequality and cyber vulnerability? What do you need? You need a huge amount of innovation. You need profitable solutions to today's challenges. What regulation does is minimizes harm. It does not create the innovation needed to solve for today's challenges. And the only thing that's going to solve is innovation. Remember the days when we used to pay, some of you may be too young to remember that, but some of you might know that there was a time when we used to pay hundreds of dollars to make a phone call for 3 minutes to the United States. How much do you pay now to speak to your friends and family in the US? That's called innovation. That's the kind of innovation we need to solve for climate change. The other day, I was at a panel and some CEOs on my panel with me were arguing, yeah, it's very difficult, because the consumer doesn't want to pay the extra cost, so what can we do? We are helpless. I tell you, I had to really control myself that day to be polite. Because what I wanted to ask is, what's your balance sheet? $2 trillion? You have so much money that you can change the world and spend money on R&D and innovation, and you are complaining that, poor citizen like me who's already reeling under the impact of inflation should pay more for going green? Oh, people are not even willing to pay $5 more for an airplane ticket if it's with sustainable aviation fuel. Oh, people are not willing to pay $1 more for this or that. Everybody goes like, why should the consumer pay? Jamshedji Tata never asked the consumer to pay extra. In 1890, when he was building a power plant, at that time, nobody knew that coal was harmful. He built a hydroelectric plant by importing machinery from Germany, which cost him 10 times more, rather than using a coal-fired or a gas-fired plant. as India was electrifying itself? It's a matter of choice. And regulation is usually reactive. When things go wrong, oh, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. Let's have 5 more new laws. Let's have stronger governance. So is regulation going to save us? No. Is regulation needed? Yes, but to minimize harm, not to create the innovation that we needed. For that, we need something else. Then there is this amazing thing in management, and I'm standing in a business school here, so I have to be careful what I say. But in business schools, we teach what gets measured gets done. You heard that phrase? And most of you believe that, right? Well, believe it at your own risk. Because it's not as simple as it sounds. It's not as simple as it sounds. Because if you over-rely on measurements and incentives, they say incentivize CEOs to go green and then they will go green. Link their bonuses to ESG markers. What is that driving? Bad behavior. Greenwashing behavior, right? We've known this from time immemorial that over-reliance on measurement and incentive actually creates bad behavior, doesn't solve anything. It causes more harm than good. Yes, you should measure, but be sensible about it, right? We've known this for the longest time. Longest time. My mentor, a professor in the United States and my former boss, wrote this article almost 40 years ago. It was called On the Folly of Rewarding A While Hoping for B. It's required reading in most MBA classes. On the folly of rewarding A while hoping for B. And he shows in that 6-page article, by the way, it's the world's most referenced management article, so it's very well known. Okay? You can download it for free. On the folly of rewarding A while hoping for B. He shows you in every walk of life, we measure and incentivize the wrong behavior, and we get, therefore, all kinds of crazy results. Let me give you a fun example. Any basketball fans today? Okay, so, all right, so the two of you. The teams that win more than lose in basketball, what are they very good at? Teamwork, yes, but what does teamwork look like in the middle of a game? What is the action while the game is on?
Defense.
No.
Passes.
Passing. The action of teamwork in the middle of a match is passing. So it's well known, teams that pass better win more. How does the NBA draft pros? On what data? Scores. So if I want to be drafted and I'm playing a match for my team, should I shoot or should I pass?
Pass.
Should I shoot or should I pass? I want to be drafted. Shoot, right? That's called On the Folly of Rewarding A while hoping for B. And whether it's in medicine, whether it's in sports, whether it's in business, whether it's in the military, whether it's in the government, there are ample examples of overemphasizing measurement and incentives getting bad behavior. This article, if you read it today, you will feel like it was written yesterday, but it's actually a 40-year-old article. It's as relevant today as it ever was, and yet we don't learn. It's required reading in almost every MBA class that I know. But we keep, what did Albert Einstein say? If you do the same thing again and again, hoping for a different result, it is the definition of insanity. But we humans don't learn, right? And now we are ESG, ESG, ESG. We're seeing more and more greenwashing. We're seeing more and more bad behavior. We're seeing more and more checkboxing, but we keep doing more of the same. Sustainability reports are getting glossier and thicker every year. Does that mean we are making progress? Well, clearly not, because we're moving in the opposite direction in terms of global warming for sure. Do you know that in sustainability teams in big companies, what is the biggest competency of the employees who work in sustainability teams? More than half the people in a sustainability team, what is their core competence? It's not environmental science, it's not social science.
Communications.
Comms and PR. Comms and PR. What does that tell you about the sustainability efforts of many companies? Exactly. Huh?
It look good.
Check the box, because regulation requires you to check the box, so you are checking the box. So coming back to our spectrum, remember I asked you what would we do to move more people and more organizations to the right? Right? So we asked 10,000 people. What motivates these guys? The Tatas, the Ayalas, the Patagonias, the Starbucks of the world. Why do they do what they do, which is do well by doing good? Why do they think of society and environment first? What motivates them most? And we gave them 5 choices. Here they are. Have a look. How many of you would say it is number 5, which is their biggest motivator? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's right. We asked 10,000 people and 91% of our respondents said 5. That's what they're motivated by. A different kind of leadership intent. A genuine and proactive leadership intent. They were not doing it because of reporting pressure or regulatory compliance or tax benefits or cheaper capital. They did it because they wanted to. They wanted to make money, for sure. But they wanted to make money by addressing a pain point. And by the way, if you really desire to be a billionaire or a trillionaire, let me tell you a little bit about the history of wealth creation. Ultra amounts of wealth were created in history when an entrepreneur was able to put a finger on the most pressing pain point of society at the time and find a profitable solution for it. So whether it was the railroads, Vanderbilt, whether it was oil, Rockefeller, whether it was power, which is JP Morgan and Edison, or whether it was Andrew Carnegie with steel, they were trying to solve a human problem profitably. That's how ultra amounts of wealth was made in history. Okay, then came the tech billionaires, this, that, and the other. Today's biggest pain points: climate change, income inequality, socioeconomic inequality, and cyber vulnerability or misuse of tech. Anybody that can solve for this profitably is going to make ultra amounts of wealth. So what we are talking about here is a way of life. What we are talking about here is a choice that you want to make as to what you want to do out of your life. These people choose it. But it's not just any kind of leadership, it's a very specific kind of leadership. And in a few minutes I'll be done with this presentation, then we can chat. But let me finish up with what is this leadership intent. So we researched 100 companies very deeply, some of whose examples I've already given you, as to how do they do well by doing good? What is the magic that they drive superior shareholder returns without complaining and by doing a lot of good? And we found what was in common with them was something called steward leadership. Studying 100 companies, and now our database is over 500 companies, we are tracking who are doing well by doing good, because every year we do initiatives and learn about more and more. They have this thing in common, steward leadership. Talking to these and actually visiting and researching these organizations, we came up with the term steward leadership. We put it in a model, in a playbook that we call steward leadership, something that Flossie was talking about very briefly earlier. What is this thing called steward leadership? 2 words, leadership and stewardship, when combined together, becomes steward leadership. But to truly understand steward leadership, we will need to upgrade our understanding of these 2 words first. Leadership. So for the last 20 years, I've been a student of leadership, more actually now. And in seminars, when I have a larger program, when people are in groups, I give people in 5 or 7 or 8 in a group a flip chart, and I give them 5 minutes and say, complete the sentence. Leadership is the act of, ... You have 10 more words to finish the sentence. Are you with me? For 20 years, I've done this exercise almost in 100 countries. All kinds of people, different industries, different nationalities. So the assignment is, in your little group, complete the sentence, leadership is the act of 10 or less words. Are you with me? In 20 years, I haven't seen a different definition. Every group comes up with the same thing. And 20 years of data is a lot of data, and it's global. You know what the composite looks like? Leadership is the act of motivating, inspiring, directing, coaching, thising, thating people towards achieving some common goals. A little difference in words here and there, but the essence, it's all about doing something to people to achieve a common goal. So then when every group reads out their statement, I ask them, so what you're saying is leadership is what you do to other people? And since they've all said the same thing, they have to agree. Because you're either inspiring or motivating or coaching or guiding or directing somebody, right? So, well, did Mahatma Gandhi do anything to anybody? He did not have any direct reports, he did not have any political office, he did not have any title, and 700 million people followed him willingly. Did he do anything to anybody? Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years. People couldn't see him, people couldn't hear him, but they kept him alive in their heart as their leader. Could a prisoner do anything to anybody? Martin Luther King Jr., same story. So from US to Africa to India, I've taken the whole world, the 3 biggest names of leadership in the 20th century. No, leadership is not about what you do to other people. Leadership is what you do to yourself. And what happens as a result is inspired followership. People join your journey because of who you are and what you do to yourself. But our misconception is leadership is about followers, leadership is about title, leadership is about position. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening I want to show you something. Leadership is not a title. Leadership is not a position. Leadership has nothing to do whether you have 1 follower or 1 million people reporting to you. Leadership is a burning desire to create a better future. You do not become a leader when you are promoted and get a big title. You do not become a leader when you win an election. You become a leader when you close your eyes and imagine the better future you want to create, however small, however big. The day you ask your question, the question, how is my life going to matter for the planet and its people? That's the day you become a leader. And that way you can promote yourself to a leader any day.
So basically you're saying it's about being self-driven.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's the upgraded definition of leadership we need to keep in mind if you want to understand steward leadership, because steward leadership is even higher than that. Now, when you think about stewardship, what comes to mind? The word steward, what does that mean? What picture comes to mind? Sorry? Somebody, when you're on the airplane, steering a ship, or somebody who's serving you your coffee, or somebody who's managing your money, it's a caretaker, a server, somebody like that, right? That's a steward. Again, that's an outdated definition. In business, we have an elevated definition of stewardship, and at Stewardship Asia Center, this is what we offer. Stewardship is creating value. Remember, business exists to make money by integrating the needs of stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. That's what the Tatas do. That's what the Ayalas do. That's what Patagonia does. That's what Faber-Castell in Germany does. And I could go on and on and on with names. Now you combine these two words and these two definitions, you get steward leadership. How? You borrow from the idea of leadership and creating a better future, and you say steward leadership is still the genuine desire and persistence to create a better future, but you borrow from the idea of stewardship and say not just a better future, because the better future could be just for me or my shareholder, but a collective better future for stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. We found that if businesses were doing well by doing good, which means they were producing superior shareholder returns by doing something good for the environment and society, they were practicing steward leadership. That's what was in common with all of them. And it was by choice that they were doing it, not any other reason. Now, what is all these beautiful words on a screen, PowerPoint jugglery and all that is fine, but what does it mean in real life? Turns out that practicing steward leadership is not rocket science. Very simple, actually. There's only 3 steps. It's not about complexity, it's about genuineness with which you pursue it. So let's take a look. So there are 3 steps. The first step is to add 4 specific values to your value system as an individual or as an organization, both. These leaders, steward leaders, believe in these 4 values. The first one is interdependence. What is interdependence? Interdependence is a deep-rooted belief that my success is intertwined with yours. The more I do for you, the more successful I am going to be because our success is intertwined. That's interdependence. The more I give, the more I will get. They deeply believe in that. So they give unconditionally. That's the idea of interdependence. Okay? You don't believe in interdependence, you cannot be a steward leader. It goes beyond the idea of collaboration, not just teamwork and collaboration. It's the belief that the more I give, the more I will get. You understand? Long-term view. There may be some short-term pain, but in the long term, it's going to be much more profitable for me, and I'm going to be around for 100 years if I pursue steward leadership. That's the idea behind long-term view. Ownership mentality. This is my planet, this is my home, these are my people. In my life, I'm going to make a small difference. That's why I'm here in this planet. That is the meaning of ownership mentality. I will not be a bystander. Even if I do just a little bit, I will not die before I do it. That's called ownership mentality. Yeah? All these are matters of choice, by the way, which each one of us can make or not. And finally, the most important is creative resilience, because making money this way is going to require more effort, because innovation is not easy. Innovation means 8 out of 10 times I'm going to fail, right? But I will not give up. That's why the resilience part of creative. Creativity is the innovation, resilience is I will not give up. So the first step to practicing this is to follow and imbibe these 4 values and live your life, and then imbibe it into the culture of your organization. That's the first one. But these values cannot just be posters on the wall. A lot of companies have lofty values, right? But they're just posters on the wall. I'll give you an example when this is actually embedded into the culture. Netflix company had a 1.5-inch thick internal policy binder telling you what to do if you were an employee and when you were traveling on business. When to travel on business class, when to travel economy class, how much to spend for breakfast in which city, blah, 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 what are the rules of entertaining clients, money spent, blah, blah, blah. One fine day, they threw out that binder and replaced it with a 1-line new policy, which is just 1 sentence. And that 1 sentence was, act in Netflix's best interest. Now you get to decide as an employee whether you travel business or economy. You get to decide how much to spend for breakfast or lunch and who to take out or not. What do you think happened to travel and entertainment expenses for the next 3 years? Went up? No. Went down 30%. When a culture of values is built, magic happens. When they are just posters on the wall, when you rule with rules and policies, people max out the policy. When you put the onus on the employee, they say, well, I better do the right thing. My own research in this matter is that 4% of the people will misuse. If you give them trust and empowerment, 4% will try to misuse, 96% will actually do the right thing and surprise you on the upside. Expenses went down. But they were very clear. We're giving you this responsibility, we're giving you this freedom, it comes at a price. The first time you do wrong, we will warn you. The second time you do it, you'll be fired. No more questions. You want the freedom, take the responsibility. Now, there was another company which also had lofty values, but in that company, it was just posters on the wall. And this is what happened. Remember this incident? This video that went viral about 5 years ago? If you don't know this, what happened was, it was a short 2-hour flight somewhere within the United States. It was overbooked. And the usual rule that airlines follow is, if it's an overbooked flight, they offer you $400 and say, take the next flight. Give up your seat. Nobody gave up their seat that day. Okay? The next piece of the rule says, if nobody gives it up, pick up somebody at random and throw them out. So this Dr. David Dow, who's a medical doctor, was the one Mr. Random that day. He said, look, I have an emergency on the other end. Pick somebody else. I can't go. I don't. No, sir, you're the random. You have to go. That's the rule. Sorry, I won't go. And they beat him up and dragged him out of the plane. Video goes viral. Millions of dollars of damages. And reputational damages, talk about that, over and above legal and other things. But you know, that wasn't even the worst part of the story. You know what the worst part of the story was? The first words that came out of the CEO's mouth when the video went viral. You know it?
I think he said that we stand by what our staff did.
My employees did nothing wrong. They followed stated company policy. They followed stated industry norm. If there's a bigger PR disaster, I'd love to hear it. Right? What I'd like to ask the CEO is this question. If instead of feeling compelled to follow stated company policy, your employees had felt empowered to follow stated company values, would they have tried harder to find a different solution? Heck yes. What do you think if you were empowered as an employee to live the values of the company? By the way, United Values, you can look up on their website, all about the customer first. What would you do if you were that employee and you were allowed to follow values rather than the rules in this situation?
Talk to others, see who needs it more.
Nobody gave up that day.
But still,
Double the reward, triple the reward, quadruple the reward, $2,000, $3,000, somebody will give it up, right? No, not empowered to live the values, compelled to live the rules. So this is an example. You see the contrast between the two. My point is this, that these values cannot just be posters on the wall. You've got to believe in it yourself as the leader. You've got to build a culture. People have to feel that if I do the right thing by the values of the company, I will not be penalized. And I tell you, personally as a corporate leader for 22 years of my life, I never ever gave strict rules to my staff. till today, in every organization that I have led, I have worked with the principle, come and go whenever you like, there's no timings, do what you think is right, but achieve your goals. And if you have difficulty, then we talk, right? Nobody has disappointed me till now. I take that back. Maybe 1 or 2 people in 30 years have disappointed me, and I fired the heck out of them because they misused the trust. But majority of the people, I've never had to fire. I never had to straighten out. People understand. I like my freedom. But I know that with that freedom comes responsibility, right? So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is now based on those values, give and articulate your organization and yourself a stewardship purpose. A stewardship purpose. Those are stewardship values, this is stewardship purpose. What is stewardship purpose and how does it differ from other purposes? Everybody has a purpose. Every organization has a purpose, whether you know it or not, right? Even the mafia has a purpose. Very clear purpose and very clear values, except not stewardship values and not stewardship purpose, right? A stewardship purpose differs from other purpose in only one way. It aims to create a collective better future for stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. Not just for the shareholder. That's the only difference. Collective better future. Remember our definition? So what is the collective better future you're going to create? In business, you are absolutely entitled to make money. But while making money, what good are you going to do for society? That's the question. So that's the second. Now together your values and your purpose becomes the compass, the steward leadership compass. And the final step is ensure that everything your organization does from that time onwards is refer to the compass before finalizing any decision. Pricing decision, hiring decision, firing decision, marketing decision, sourcing decision, does it comply with the compass? Mars Company is one of the companies we study for sustainability. They do an amazing job for the environment and for cocoa workers all around the world. They have something called the Mars Compass, very similar to this one. By the way, they don't call it interdependence, they call it mutuality. But the idea is exactly the same. The phrase, whole volume of economic work was produced at Mars, a combination of Mars and Oxford, called the economics of mutuality. And they showed how the more you do for society, the more you make profits for yourself. Anyway, so there's a rule at Mars, not a rule, a practice. In every conference room in Mars offices around the world, you'll see the picture of the Mars Compass. Employees are required or encouraged that before you leave any meeting, the last 10 minutes, review the decisions that you have just made and put them through the compass and say, are they in agreement with the compass? If so, great. If not, revisit. No employee is allowed to start work at Mars without 3 weeks of training, even if you're coming at the C-suite level, because they really drill it down. That's the whole idea behind this. It's not rocket science, it's the consistency, it's the sincerity with which you apply it. Now in 2008, there was a terrorist attack in Mumbai. Some of you might remember that, right? A bunch of people with machine guns started firing people. If you were having dinner or were staying at the Taj Mahal Hotel, which is a Tata property, by the way, in Mumbai, and in the middle of your dinner, these guys came and started spraying bullets. Okay? Sadly, I lost some friends there that day. And many people know people that were lost. But you know what? Not a single Tata employee fled for their life that night. If anything, they formed human rings around their customers to save them. Tell me what kind of policies, what kind of rules and procedures, internal codes will encourage somebody to take a bullet for their customer? That's called culture, my friends. That's called values. Because steward leadership is practiced from top down, and that's how the Gandhis and the Mandelas of the world motivated people, not by giving them incentives and things like that. So that's the power of steward leadership. So my friends, I'm done more or less. Here's the final pitch. To drive climate and social action, governance in its current form uses the power of rules, policies, procedures, laws. Steward leadership uses the power of purpose, values, and profit. Profit is equally important because it is profit that is going to save the world. So go out and make tons of money. But the challenge of 21st century leadership, can you make money by addressing the very challenges that humanity is facing right now? Those crypto kings that are suddenly in jail, I asked them the question, because some of them were thumping their own chests as to how geniuses, PhDs from Harvard and this, that, and the math genius, this genius, economics genius, and they're putting their brain power to work and making tons of money. I said, but what problem are you solving? Can you put that same genius, you're gifted with a better brain than mine, with a better brain than most people, can you put that genius to work to make that money while solving a human problem? Suddenly they go absolutely quiet when you pose it that way. And that is the challenge for all of us. And we may not be geniuses like those people, but we all have a brain. We all have a heart. And we can all do a little bit through our working lives for people and for planet. This is our only home. Yeah? So what we are suggesting to the powers that be is that ESG be upgraded to ESL, where L stands for leadership, specifically steward leadership. And for corporate bosses, does your organization have a strong compass of stewardship, values, and purpose? A is the compass used to guide decision making at all levels, including the boardroom. And most importantly, do you have sufficient innovation engines which are going to give you that high shareholder growth by addressing human problems? That itself is the challenge of 21st century leadership. And that's all I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you got something out of it. I hope there was some food for thought. And most importantly, I hope you will go away tonight thinking about what your legacy is going to be, because we need everybody's legacy to save people and planet. Thank you very much. I got bad news for you, my friend. 80% of the people will not buy into what we've said today. 80% of the people will not buy into steward leadership, and certainly if you have certain values, 80% of the people, if you have the right values, will not. They'll give you lip service, but they won't buy in deeply. So what's the point of this fancy presentation? What's the point of writing books and all the research that my center does on this issue if it's a lost cause, if 80% are not even going to listen? So that's the bad news. Here's the good news. We don't need 80%. We only need to convince 20%, 2 out of 10 people, to adopt these values and adopt this way of life. Only 2 out of 10. And 2 out of 10, 20% will be enough, not only to save the world, but to secure our future. Why is 20% the magic number? Anybody? Exactly, thank you. It's the Pareto principle. 80-20 rule, right? In 1906, Vilfredo Pareto, the Italian socio-economist, noticed that 20% of the pods in his garden produce 80% of the peas. Then he looked at agricultural produce all over Europe, and it was the same idea. He noticed that 20% of Italians owned 80% of land and wealth in Italy, and that was true of all of Western Europe. That's how the 80-20 rule was born. Till today, it hasn't been debunked mathematically. 20% of all code produces 80% of the bugs. 20% of your salespeople produce 80% of your revenue, 20% of your customers give you 80% of your revenue, 20% of your customers also give you 80% of your complaints, and everything 80%, 80-20 applies. Hence, my friend, choose those 20% very carefully and convince those 20%. The rest you manage. For them, there is regulation to minimize harm, right? But those 20, you get to your side and yourself, you're good. First of all, it's easier in smaller companies, because what you need to do is lead the way. Lead by example. How is culture set? Culture is set by looking at people and saying, what are they doing, and can I follow that? So in a smaller company, you can lead by example much faster, much quicker. In a larger company, it gets more difficult, right? And by the way, when it comes to resources, whether it was Howard Schultz of Starbucks, whether it was Jamshedji Tata of Tata, whether it was Shinod of Patagonia, they were all very small at one time, before they became the global juggernauts, right? From day one, they said, I choose to live my life this way. And the people who believed in them are the ones who gave them their partnership, their followership, and their blood, sweat, and tears. So the only way to do this is to live it yourself. And slowly, one by one, those who believe in you will come towards you. Those who don't agree with your values will leave. Or you tell them to leave. That's the only way to do it. When it comes to resources, right, this idea that sustainability is a cost is a huge problem. According to the World Economic Forum, climate change alone presents $10.1 trillion a year of new business opportunities annually for the foreseeable future. Because as the ice cap is melting, it's creating a lot of havoc, but it's also creating new opportunities, right? And 395 million new jobs estimated. So we have to shift the narrative from sustainability being a cost problem or a compliance problem to an opportunity. And that's a mindset. The other day I attended a session on the role of the board in driving sustainability, and I counted in the 1 hour panel discussion, they used the word climate risk 30 times. They used climate opportunity once. And that's the problem. Because we think of this as a cost or a resource consumption thing. You have to flip it to opportunity. That's what doing well by doing good is. And is it easy? No. When you're finding innovative solutions, you're going to have to struggle. I mean, any one of you, when you're proud of having achieved something that you are proud of, that you did in your life, chances are you failed 5 times before that, before you finally succeeded. Some people lucky they succeed the first time, right? And that 5 times failure is okay. If you haven't failed repeatedly, means you're not trying anything new. You're not challenging status quo. So don't be scared of failure. Because if you don't fail, you can't succeed. For how long do you want to make profit? What is your time horizon?
Okay.
Forever in your life?
I'm alive, which is maybe 80 to 90 years old.
Great answer. If you want to be profitable and you want to grow profitably in whatever business that you pursue for 80 to 90 years, I've already given you the playbook. If you want to make short-term profits and not worried about anything beyond 8 to 10 years, don't listen to a word I'm saying. If you want to stay in business and thrive for 80 to 90 years, all the examples that I told you, the Tatas, the Yayalas, all these hundreds of examples, they will tell you the reason we still exist and the reason we continue to grow is because we see ourselves as stewards of planet Earth and humanity. We think society first, and then we figure out how can we make money while addressing a pain point. That's the longevity formula. So if you want to make profits for 80 to 90 years, steward leadership is for you. But if you're living for the next quarter or for the next year, and these days the CEO tenure is only 3 years, then it's not for you. Yeah, because if I'm the CEO and I know that my tenure is only going to be 3 years, I may as well maximize my bonuses for 3 years, then I will do everything opposite of what I just said. So that's the answer. Number 1, what is your purpose? Number 2, what values will you live by in pursuing that purpose? Number 3, what is your business solving a human problem? That's it. That's it. You see, most people, the 2 most existential questions everybody should ask themselves personally: what are my values that I will never give up no matter what happens? And what is my purpose? What will my life be worth? Because the source of happiness is not more money, not more power, It's about knowing that I'm pursuing a worthy purpose. But 90% of the people, maybe 95, are born and die after 80 or 90 or 100 years and still don't know what are their values and what is their purpose. So the 3 things again: what are my values that I will never compromise no matter what? What is my purpose? What will my life be worth as a result of me having lived on this planet for 90 years? 3, what human problem is my business solving or my job solving? If you just think of nothing else but those 3 things, your career is secure, your happiness is secured, your life. So another thing that I want you to think about is, think about your life in terms of life worth, not net worth. 99% of the people on this planet spend their entire lifetime trying to maximize their net worth, which is money, wealth, assets. But if you think in terms of life worth, meaning what am I giving to society as a result of living on this planet, your net worth needs will automatically get taken care of. One of 2 things will happen. Listen very carefully now. One of 2 things will happen if you think in terms of life worth rather than net worth. Okay? Either you will find something that you're giving to the world and you're so passionate about it that you become really good at doing it, whatever it is that you're giving to the world, and you make a lot of money doing that. Right? Teachers, for example, those who are really passionate about bringing the best out of people, they get rewarded in the end. Or any kind of profession you can. Or say you are deriving a lot of pleasure out of, say, nursing or rehabilitating drug addicts or any other societal work which doesn't pay very well, your net worth needs will still take care of, because the joy you're getting out of helping people is so much that you don't need that much money. You don't feel the need for the Ferrari, because you get more pleasure out of getting somebody out of the hellhole that they are in. So either you will do something, give something which you become so good at that you are sought after at a premium, or you will derive so much pleasure doing it that you don't need as much. So think about net worth will take care of itself. Either start your own business and be the CEO forever, or join a group that believes in stewardship. In the Tata group, the average tenure is not 3 years. It's much, much longer. And so is the case with all steward leadership companies. So either find a group to work for that believes in these values, and you won't have a problem because they will not just look at the number, they will also look at the how and the why, or set up your own company. Those are the only two ways.